If your fashion wish list lives rent-free in your brain, you need to be on Poshmark. With Poshmark, you're shopping millions of listings from thousands of closets, each curated by someone with their own style. Vintage finds, designer pieces, and everyday staples all in one place. Search for your favorites or let the discovery come to you. Poshmark makes it easy to find what you actually want to wear at prices that feel like a quiet win. Download the Poshmark app today and use code PODCAST10 when you sign up to get $10 off your first purchase.
Hey listeners, this is Peter and welcome back to the History Shorts. Today's episode is brought to you by the Podcast Republic, your ultimate listening app. Discover and subscribe to thousands of podcasts from around the world. Download Podcast Republic today, available on Google Play and the Apple App Store. Today on History Shorts. In the summer of 1917, the United States had just entered the First World War. The country was asking its young men to cross an ocean and fight for democracy. Among those answering that call were the soldiers of the 3rd Battalion of the 24th Infantry Regiment, an all-black unit, part of the storied Buffalo Soldiers, one of the most decorated formations in the American military. The Army sent them to Houston, Texas, to guard a training camp called Camp Logan, to protect the construction of the facility where white soldiers were preparing to deploy to Europe. What they found in Houston was not the country they were being asked to die for. What followed on the night of August 23rd, 1917, was the only race-related incident in American history where more white people than black people were killed. It produced the largest murder trial in the history of the American military, and 13 men were executed before a single appeal could be filed. Our history brief today covers some recent history news. A quick word from our sponsors.
That refresh you've been putting off until the right deal came along? It's here! Wayfair's Black Friday and July sale is happening now, so you can finally get the style you've been waiting for less. Get up to 80% off area rugs and up to 60% off outdoor and bedroom furniture. Shop Wayfair's huge selection of styles and find the piece to fit your style, budget, and space. Plus, free shipping. Black Friday in July ends July 27th. Shop today at wayfair.com.
Wayfair, every style, every home.
This day in history. On August 22nd, 1485, Henry VII defeated Richard III at the Battle of Bosworth Field, ending the Wars of the Roses and beginning the Tudor dynasty that would rule England for more than a century. On August 22nd, 1989, Huey P. Newton, co-founder of the Black Panther Party, was shot and killed in Oakland, California, closing the life of one of the most influential and controversial figures of the civil rights era. Story of the day. The 24th Infantry Regiment had earned its reputation across decades and continents. Formed after the Civil War as one of the original Buffalo Soldiers regiments, it had fought in the Indian Wars, the Spanish-American War, and the Philippines. Its soldiers were, by any military standard, professionals, experienced, disciplined, and proud of a service record that most American units could not match. They arrived at Camp Logan in July of 1917 and almost immediately encountered the full machinery of Jim Crow Houston. They were sent into the most hostile environment imaginable. Jim Crow law, racist cops, racist civilians, laws against them being treated fairly in the streetcars, while the workers building the camp hated their presence. The Houston Police Department treated black soldiers the same way it treated all black residents, with contempt, harassment, and violence. Soldiers were beaten for sitting in the wrong section of streetcars. They were addressed with slurs. They were arrested for objecting to mistreatment. The soldiers had served their country in multiple continents. They had fought and bled under the American flag, and in Houston, Texas, in the summer of 1917, they were not permitted to sit down on a streetcar. Tensions had been building for weeks when the flashpoint arrived. On the morning of August 23rd, a Houston police officer beat and arrested a black woman. When Private Alonzo Edwards tried to intervene, he was pistol whipped and arrested. When Corporal Charles Baltimore, a military police officer investigating the incident, went to the police station to inquire, he was beaten, pistol whipped, and then chased through the neighborhood while police fired shots at him. A rumor spread back at the camp that Baltimore was dead. Baltimore later returned alive, though very bloodied. That night, a shot rang out and someone cried, "The mob is coming," prompting soldiers to rush for their rifles and set up a defensive perimeter around the 24th's camp. The white battalion commander abandoned his post, leaving other officers to try to control the panicking troops. At that point, Sergeant Vida Henry ordered soldiers in Company L to march out of the camp in formation. 156 soldiers marched toward downtown Houston in the dark. The march lasted roughly 2 hours on a hot, rainy night. The incident resulted in the deaths of 4 soldiers and 15 white civilians. Sergeant Vida Henry, who had given the order to march, was found dead afterward, an apparent suicide. He had led his men into the city and then, understanding what would come, taken his own life. Houston was placed under martial law the following morning. The 24th Infantry was disarmed and transported out of the city. And the machinery of military justice, the most brutal version of it at least, began to turn. What followed was a legal proceeding of extraordinary scope and extraordinary injustice. 3 courts martial tried 118 soldiers. 110 were convicted. Of those, 19 black soldiers were executed, 63 sentenced to life, and the rest given shorter terms. All were denied meaningful due process. The first 13 men were convicted on December 1st, 1917. They were executed on December 11th, 1917, and denied any right to appeal. 13 men hanged at a hastily constructed gallows near a shallow creek at Camp Travis. They were buried in graves marked only with numbers 1 through 13. There was no conclusive evidence or reliable witness testimony that any of the first group of executed men had participated in the riots. The speed of the proceedings, conviction to execution in 10 days without appeal, was not due process. It was vengeance wearing the uniform of justice. 6 more men were executed in subsequent proceedings, men who had been identified as having fired shots at civilians. 19 executions in total. It was and remains the largest series of executions following a court martial in American military history. The country was not entirely silent, however. Public outcry reached President Woodrow Wilson, the same Woodrow Wilson who had resegregated the federal civil service, who had screened Birth of a Nation at the White House, who had presided over a country asking black men to die for a democracy they did not share. The outcry produced one concrete result. The Army changed its regulations to require review before executions in court martial cases. The men already hanged could not benefit from that change. For them, the rule just came too late. The story of Camp Logan did not end in 1917. It ended partially in 2023. In November of 2023, the Secretary of the Army approved the recommendation of the Army Board for Correction of Military Records to set aside all the court martial convictions. The soldiers' records will be corrected to indicate that each received an honorable discharge 106 years after their executions. The History Brief. Today on History News, we're headed to northern Poland, where a routine day of metal detecting turned into the discovery of a lifetime. It started with disappointment. Metal detectorist Marcin Wiśniewski had spent hours finding little more than bottle caps and discarded beer cans. In fact, his detector became so quiet that he wondered if it had stopped working altogether. Then it beeped. As he dug into the sandy forest floor near the city of Gdańsk, he expected another piece of modern junk. Instead, a long strip of green metal emerged from the soil. The object was sticking straight up out of the ground. Wisniewski had just discovered a remarkably well preserved 2,700-year-old Bronze Age sword, still standing vertically in the earth exactly where someone had placed it nearly 3 millennia ago. Fortunately, he didn't make a mistake that many treasure hunters might. Rather than pulling the sword out himself, he carefully covered it back up, marked the location with an empty beer can he had found nearby, and then contacted heritage officials the very next day. Archaeologists soon arrived and professionally excavated the weapon, preserving valuable evidence that would have been lost if it had simply been yanked from the ground. The sword dates back to between 900 to 700 BCE during the Late Bronze Age. It's nearly 2 feet long and was cast entirely in bronze, although its original wooden or bone handle has long since decayed. Intricate engraved decorations remain visible along the blade itself, suggesting it was once an object of considerable prestige. At the time it was made, the question that comes up here is why was it standing upright? Researchers, well, don't know. Across Europe, archaeologists have occasionally discovered swords deliberately placed in rivers, bogs, and wetlands as ritual offerings, but finding one driven vertically into the ground is extremely unusual. Was it part of a religious ceremony, a territorial marker, a hidden treasure perhaps, or perhaps a symbolic offering to the gods? Well, at this point, no one can say. The region has produced remarkable discoveries before. In the 1920s, archaeologists recovered two similar Bronze Age swords from a nearby peat bog. Tragically, those artifacts disappeared during World War II and have never been recovered. Anyway, I thought it was a cool story. Thank you so much for spending some time with me today and helping make this little show such a mighty success. If you're enjoying this show and would like to help with its production, you can always donate a few dollars at buymeacoffee.com or become a Patreon member to enjoy these episodes ad-free. Both of those links can be found on our website at www.historyshortspodcast.com. And don't forget to check out our YouTube channel where we have different videos and series that are not part of this main feed. Have a great rest of your day, and I will talk to you all again tomorrow.
Some so-called SUVs feel more like toys. You need a real vehicle that'll handle real life. A real SUV, like the all-new 2027 Kia Seltos. With its best-in-class interior room, it'll make the others feel like toys. Check out the new 2027 Kia Seltos X-Line. It's real-world ready. Kia, movement that inspires. Limited inventory available. Comparison based on publicly available data regarding cargo room and 2026 entry all-wheel drive CUVs as of May 2026. Entry all-wheel drive CUV class as defined by Kia segmentation.